since some asked a couple of questions on those, I'm just going to show you where they are, where he was talking about on a couple of those commands, so you can kind of see what's going on. Like here now in our defined processing, you'll notice right here is your restore backup option. You click that. Well, there's none in that one. Yeah, let's see. I was in this one. Oh, okay, I'll go to the test file because we're just there. What? Oh. So these are all my backups. Now, as I'm working along, this will also make a copy of that backup as I'm working at a set interval. So there's two different kinds of backups here, what we're talking about. One of them, there's two sets of backups. One is every single time you go into the processing table, it'll lay out a copy of that before you does any modifications. You can set up to say I want X number. You make it high enough, then you have a total history of any time you've ever been to the processing, or you go into the processing and come out for every entry. The other one is while you're working along, it'll just every so often, as long as your keyboard, you're typing and all that, every set interval of like 3 minutes, I think.
By default, it's every 1 minute after you press a key on your keyboard. If it's a new change or you're moving around, it will save the file. But if it's just sitting there inactive, it won't automatically trigger the backup.
You say if you're not active?
If you are active, it will back up. If you are not, it will not back up.
Can I make one suggestion that you add to that?
Yes.
User ID.
That works in Unix.
Yeah.
Windows not so much.
Windows is not too easy to do, but yeah.
Or on the Nick side anyway. I mean, it'd be nice to know which person was doing it.
On the user side, there's a system variables that's set by Windows when you log in. That's better than nothing.
So anybody can walk through anybody's machine, and that's the hard part of that. But yeah. But nevertheless, at every step, as you're working along and I'm typing and all that, this is making all these backups as you see along the line, so that if any time I make a mistake, I'm like, doggone it, I just typed that. What was that lookup? And I destroyed my processing table. And then you have to hit Control-C and start all over again on a whole section. And now you can go back, cancel out, and go back to something in your history essentially, and then bring it back up.
A number of lines or a file size might be another way to tell the difference between when there's so many of them there.
But I'd like to know who did it.
So, yeah, this is a very new feature.
You know, there's times where I would pay a couple $100 for that.
Oh, believe me, I'm with you.
One thing.
You can't
preview it.
We could go into any of these. No. Oh, there we go. I don't know, whatever one we want to go with. There it pops up.
You can just cancel out of it.
And then I cancel because I go in and
How do I know I'm looking at a backup right now?
Let's go make a change to the first file.
No, I mean, you have the
he doesn't
processing.
know. There's no indication.
There should be an indicator.
We can add that.
Where it says input, if I could have this open and the live one open.
What was that?
You got the processing input, why not just put it right there?
Yeah, we said it wasn't something we thought of at that time. We'll enhance it. Now, when you save it, though, it's going to ask whether or not you want to make this the replacement for the input. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to. Oh, okay. So if I hit, see it says override, I'm going to say no, I don't want to.
So you don't have to go back in your directory and dig that out and find your storage from your file. You don't have to literally your directory and a bunch of
It's in a subdirectory.
input dash good.
One other quick thought, as this is used a lot.
Louder.
As that's used a lot, it's going to end up getting really long. You might end up wanting to have it show you the list of output formats, like the way output output does first,
Right.
pick processing input, and then show the backups related to that one. Because I could see us having 1,000 backups.
Where are those stored? Are they in the
They're under the FilePro file under a subdirectory called PRC backups.
So, any of the database.
Any processing table.
Don't they get deleted from time to time?
They will automatically roll depending on what you have set in your environment. By default, I think it's 12 copies.
That's a great.
Okay.
Check out Zebraland.
So there they all are. So you can tar them up and hold them for a history if you want.
And if Abe is set to ASCII, they're
They're
just
plain text.
Plain text.
Okay. GI version 3, it has the scalability. If you're all seen it, maybe at 2.0, it is limited at 800 by 600 resolution. With today's monitors, that kind of blew everything apart. So the GI version 3 ended up going to the scaling and allows us to drag a corner and make things larger. The exception to that is the menus, though you can optionally go in there and alter the size of those fonts if you want on an individual client. So I'm going to just go into these example files.
Is the scalability changed with 6?
No, it's the same scales. Let's see. These are all, if you're familiar with message send, which is FilePro's default format, which I'll bring up the processing behind here to kind of give you an idea what's behind this. The message sends are the way that you can send executions to the client and allow the client to launch things, or that are outside the normal FilePro type of a thing. So, in those sense, I'm trying to get to one of these right now. It's hard to do this, but when we had a message send, you first had to declare the handle and also take in, declare tell menu called it, and set that all up. Logan has since now eliminated that in a shorter version, but in order to give you a longhand form, for example, this here would be a menu call, and then it would say @EXZ, which is a web-based command. This does not work in the GI client, but this is for zones. So a zone above FilePro in an embedded frame, and that would be 2 levels above, and then here's the file that it is. So what happens is they're always within between symbols, and then everything was built on those. And like in this one here, this @XZ, comma 2 is the second frame. Take it down. So to make life easier, we ended up switching. Though these old commands still are there, you can now take and use just the GUI functionality. And so he's got these commands that are now, it says GUI, or @GUI, GUI, at GUI, and then the parameter that you have for your different messages, and then its executable thing, and then its parameters that are related to it. So let's go over a few of these. These are just, in this particular page, these are all for GI client. And I think all these are GI client only on this first column. The second column works on both GUI and web. So, as I said, some things aren't implemented in web because of their security issues and stuff like that. So here you have a display, which is the little image that it comes out. That's the D option. It allows you to move that wherever you want, and then you can take it down as well when you do the act. So that's, and ends up taking it out. You got the run feature. You hit R for run. You can take and say, hey, I want to open this, and you can even specify saying, I want to open it with this application, with the parameters that are laid out. This is what brings the power to GI, because you can take and launch different applications based on from the server, even though they're not even related. It could be a Unix server, but you're executing things to the local client. We have now at RH, which is run hidden. It runs the same thing, but more in the background. As you notice, it's the exact same image, but I didn't put the flag in order to say open in Paint, so just opening up the image in its default viewer. We have the application directory. So, let's see. That's telling me where I'm running from. So it acquired the client, my PC, and it's saying it's C:\FPGI-B3. That's where my application directory is located. I've got my version commands telling me my version of filePro, the client that I have. You can zip a file even from the client. That'll zip up a file, and I tell it the parameters to zip it and unzip it. You have the log files that you can take and set up a snapshot. You can email the logs, and it'll end up popping up the mail client. I don't know if I have my mail client set up. No, there it is. So this is the log file. So like if somebody had an error on their client and you wanted them to give you the log, you could actually put it in an email and then send that along. And then they could address it and mail it on its way. Oh, that's because I can't. Okay. Here's the drill down type of a thing. So you can drill down and get to a file, and then you say open it, say OK, and it passed to the client, the directory and the file that I had selected. So if you wanted to do something from the client.
Was that browsing the server or the PC?
That's the PC. So I actually, when I executed that, I told the PC to bring up its program, and then we pass back the parameters. Let me go back to show you the exact code. Nasty thing. So this is in. That one was NS. Right? That's F9. Okay. Here's the new format. The X here, that tells me what variable the value is going to be passed to. Here's your GUI. The SFN is the parameter. And then as you notice, here's where I'm saying, hey, just take and bring back my parameter. As you notice, in my situation here, I use the new replace command. I told it to change the backslashes to forward slashes so that they look viewable and don't get interpreted as, other codes. So you can see a path on it. It's one of my favorite commands that we've implemented. I use it all the time. So that's how you pass the parameters. We have a window, and it tells me whether or not the window, it gives me a 1 or a 0 to tell me if it's active. You got it tells me where my Windows directory is. Whether or not a file exists on the client, and also whether or not a directory exists on a client. We have now, I'll replace a byte on a file, and I can delete a file, so be careful with that one because you're deleting actually the file on that PC, as well as create a directory on that PC. Then you have your normal embedded one, which that's been around for a while. You got the execute to close that down. this here is your path one in order to handle, when you have drop downs. I'll show you drop downs later, but when you define them, you take and give a directory path, you can substitute the value of $path with whatever you would put in that P area and allow it to, so if I had several files and I wanted different text files to relate to it, I could change those. And this allows me to change the file for that drop file. IP, this will tell you the IP address of the client. And then we have a dialog. This has all sorts of different options that we have capable. So this example has got like every feature that we have on our buttons. You can take and tell by just flagging 1 or 0. The 3 indicates that it's message 1, but there's like 4 or 5 of them different options. You got warning and all that. And then you flag whether or not 0 or 1, whether or not you want that button to appear. And then when you click that button, it'll pass back that value, and then you can act on it to do whatever you want with it. Then we have a progress bar. This is what Bill was getting confused with a little bit ago. It shows you the progress. That works in both GUI and graphics or web. You got your PC name. So this tells you my machines. And you got, what's that? Yeah, pause and resume is very hard to show, but essentially it pauses what's getting displayed to the screen and then resumes it after whenever it sees that.
The screen here is showing commands that you put in the process.
These are all commands that GI client has on their own, or has that are available that interact with the client that just you can't do in character. The GUI send up here is essentially, if I take it in its native form of that message send and just populate it there, it'll act on that original format. So if I'm used to the other and I don't want to set up the whole declare stuff, I can just say @GUI send and then give the whole parameter string and it'll act. Now, there is a couple of differences here. The old message commands, they weren't allowed to use variables per se within the structure of its command. So you would actually say, like, I want to use 1 or like set screen 1 and then its value and all that. Those would not be in quotes. The GUI ones are in quotes, so you can use environmental variables as well. So there's an enhancement there besides being able to accept. Here's an example of these are embedded windows. You're allowed 1 in GI if you were to execute it. In web, we allow now 20. So that's a big change from there. As you notice here, we have the ribbon. This is your new button set. They move from the bottom rows up here to the top. Now, saying that, you can still, if you're happy and you love your old buttons, we have what they call themes. If you can see the URL at the top, it's ending up here with themes. By default, I'm giving you the theme menu, the theme buttons, and gray for grayscale. Now you don't see the two changing much here with the buttons and so forth. But if you're like adamant to have your buttons at the bottom, just a second, I'll log in. There's a good old buttons at the bottom like you're traditionally used to seeing them. And then you can take and go into the third option. And the buttons move to the side. See over here to the it'd be the left side. This is the web. We're allowing you to take and have your buttons in 3 different positions. I can show you the exact same screen on all of these, based on the theme. Let's see.
That's not a code change.
No.
It's not a processing.
It's not a processing change at all. as long as your buttons are defined, it'll switch, and so it's a preference based on that theme, which is a CSS file that you have control over to change.
If you use a show at the bottom of the screen, that's not going to move around on its own.
A show on the bottom of the screen, if it contains buttons, the button definitions will move to the top or wherever else you're going to go. So depending on your theme or whatever you have set in your configurations, they will either move up to the top or the side, stay at the bottom. But the show buttons do still act like normal buttons in that case.
So you still write your show button.
You still make your show buttons, and
They're gonna move based on.
they will
on the theme
move.
that you choose.
They move based on the theme, and you have the ability to change the themes however you wish to change them to. So, as you notice, I have the buttons in 3 different locations. This theme is buttons. They're down here on the bottom because I called it button.
So you're specifying line 21, line 22.
Yes, anything below that line is the movable parts. If it's above that line, it stays in its position. So if I had the button defined right here, just below washer and dryer, for example, that button would still be there to be able to be clicked. It's just those below that line.
What if you show on line 21?
It'll show all that.
It'll
It
say.
shows on line 21. That's our breakoff point. So anything below that.
If you're remote, Chris, if you're remote and you have a drop packet or something like that, or a wireless connection, and you move from one part of the warehouse to another and you drop a packet, will you notice a drop in the connection? Will this,
Yeah, we would.
you would?
And we'd clean that up so that you wouldn't have to worry about it not being able to retrieve that session. So you can, when you log back in, you're not penalized for that drop.
Will you be where you left off, or will you have to log in again?
Right now, you have to log in again.
Okay. Same as GI.
Yep.
Can you compare the web one with the buttons at the bottom to the normal GI? I think you have both of them open.
Sure.
So that's web, and
Whoops.
that's
Let me get to the same files.
we were talking during.
So, yeah, this is the exact same file, I just don't have the embedded image over here to the corner. But I can launch up, and here's the map from Google, because I ran it.
What governs on the HTML, on the web, the fact that hot tub is a drop-down?
It's based on what's on the screen. So what you'll do is you'll set up, it's a tab delimited file. Just a second, and I will take.
So, I mean, is the screen defined separately for the web than it is for a standard screen?
No, it's the same screen. It's just it's looking for key elements, and then that triggers a drop down to be shown. So, for example, these are all yes nos. So, for our office at Henson Associates, not FilePro, we triggered the question mark as being a trigger mechanism for a yes no. So when it sees the question mark, it makes a yes or a no drop down. And then, unlike GI,
So on the text screen, you would see question mark, like basic question mark? Is that what's triggering it over there?
yes, this question mark on the character screen, and I can show you this in character too. That character screen is,
Does it look at what the field type is? Is it yes, no field? or
no, it's
question
not
mark?
looking at field types.
You're using the GI drop-down.
Yes.
Yeah, but unlike GI, I don't have to put that on every single PC. I only have to put on the server the drop-down locations and the text files. So that's really a good plus.
You added the F6 shows as a drop-down now too, or was that still on the wish list?
It does in GI and characters, not web.
Okay.
I went through it all.
A lot of those are from the GI toolkit. You can set up the question mark, you could put a period, put a colon, any unique
you define
character,
it how you want
and that gives you the question and how it drops down.
So, yeah, so here you see the same screen, and this is the character screen for that same one. And so I haven't done anything except for define my
So
drop
if I
down.
was to put like after bedrooms a question mark there, that's It would
That-
be bedrooms, yes, no?
Yep, that would change that to say yes, no.
Even though I'm looking for a number
Do you
of
have a
bedrooms.
sample with an F6 you could show?
That's why we took the toolkit and integrated it into GI server, because we knew with this coming out, everybody's gonna wanna put
Fields
these
that have a browser function.
unique drop downs in, and so it's
Not
just
gonna
given
cost,
to you
so
for
it's
that.
not gonna do that. The, I'm gonna go here and I'll show you the,
Logan, you said that would be there under GI.
Yes. Yep, it does work under GI.
So if you have a browse defined, an F6 browse on a field with your own customized dropdown, that will show like the dropdown without having to go in and add them to the GI config
There's still a flag in the environment that you have to set first, but
to
yes.
turn that on.
so,
The F6 browse,
Drop
drop
or
or
something
something,
like
they
that.
added that.
so what you have here, this is the structure for drop downs, how it knows. They're numbered 1 through whatever you go to. You enable them, they're tab delimited. You got your eyes, for this one I have an I colon. It's in the left position, which is really the only position that really works. Then these are just a description followed by, here's the text file in its full path form. It's code description, it's delimitator, and a couple of other fields. Now I've made this into a file that eventually, when I get it done, I'll give it to everybody, or that allows you not to have to go through all this. You can actually select it in a menu type of an environment. I could show you that here in a second. But the reason that those question marks, as you were asking, that's because of this line right here. So it's type as question, and so because of that, everything's a question mark. Now, as such, if you got more than one that has a question mark, let's say I wanted some other thing to be a question mark, I would want that above my plain question mark because it's doing it in the order, you know, from, if it sees the question mark before the name question mark, it'll do the question mark.
And that's examples showed on 2, 3, and 4. He's got a period on line 4 by itself. If it sees I period, it picks up I period. If
Yeah.
it falls through, it'll pick up just period by itself.
Yeah, so these are just what we do. That doesn't mean how you have to do them, but that's just how we've developed our screens for drop downs.
You have to create the screen, a GUI screen and a character screen.
No, it's a single screen. It's just what I was just showing you there is these are telling on this screen. When I see on this screen this, whatever's in this column, then trigger a drop down from the text from this file.
Can you show MCI so they can see the contents of what one of the actual dropdowns?
The eyes. Let me see. Do I have
What's in that?
eyes?
I thought your third folder.
No, he wanted to see the text.
I can show you the text
Text
file.
file, that's what I mean.
Okay, I'm sorry. Text files are very easy because they're just,
The config file says MCIs gets launched basically on this from a screen looking for a phrase. Those are the choices it's going to put in your
so,
list.
yes, this is a selection. So the dd0.text file references and says, this is how it's defined, there's its text file, and this is the contents of the text file. Now, if you notice this one, I'm going to try to zoom in. This one here has the $ path, and remember I said the GUI @p. If I had a value on that, this $ path would be replaced with the value of whatever I had in @GUI @p, and then I'd come up with a name. And the reason I would want to do that is so that I could take and have, like, in here I got these as code in here for my one application, but here in another application this is code. So I can change its interpretation, but yet reference that uses the same codes. So now, the nice thing is, here in this interface, as you know, I gotta activate it first. Okay, you notice it ends up going up and down, and when you select records, it actually will change the values on the fly for its URL. And then this one here, I have embedded video, that's playing and stuff like that. And it's got the audio and all that, and it's so, but it'll change. Also, if you notice, this is Google Maps. I triggered it in a new window in order to take and have it change its address based on the address I have on the record. To add up to it, come up here to the zip code, for example, and I have a lookup for the zip code, and then they'll go out to the internet to the zip code file, for example, and give them an idea. Okay, maybe what zip code do I have? And so this is looking at 4342 or 4343 for Bowling Green. Those are the two zip codes for it.
In this example, you're layering the images and the videos over top of the 80 by 25 space.
Correct.
But because you're in browser, you could also, with the new features, move them into side frames.
Right, and I'll show you that here. Actually, I did not show those, but in the, let's go here to the demo. Okay. And what you're asking about here is, again, I'm trying to expand west. That expands
If we
that.
go out
Here
to
to
the-
why is it doing that though? It's the first I've ever seen that. Here's our north region. You can put your north URL, and then you can take it down. Wait. All right, progress bar. North. I know where I want to go. Pads, guys. Yeah.
You don't have to.
This is how I did the drop downs and switched it. So you could take in I'm allowing it to be added, so you could add to your text files, and then you hit record, and then if you want to modify or edit one, or view them. Okay. All right. I'm gonna let Logan take over.